Madness is happening all around the NBA, and we are with you on the PHLY Sixers Free Agency Frenzy Podcast. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers Frenzy Podcast presented by Rothman Orthopedics, along with Derek Bodner. I'm Devon Givens. Kyle Neubeck still at Summer League practice right now at the facility, and Bree is here hanging out with us as always, the president of basketball operations. Folks, a ton to get to from all around the association. We don't even need a news and notes section because there's a ton of things that we just simply have to talk about a little bit later in the show that we'll get to. We'll talk about rehashing a little bit from last night's show. If you missed our emergency podcast, Sixers signing Trendon Watford from the Brooklyn Nets on a 2-year deal. We still await some resolution of Quentin Grimes. Of course, that'll happen when we sign off at 4 o'clock. And we have to start off.
It would be when I'm halfway through my drive home at about 4:45.
Fair point. And we have to start off with Guerschon Yabusele joining the New York Knicks on a 2-year deal worth $12 million. $6 million annually for each year, and that is their mid-level exception that they were able to include to sign Guerschon Yabusele. Yesterday, it was also reported that they're going to get Jordan Clarkson after his buyout with Utah on a veteran minimum deal. So they add 2 guys to their mix. But when you look at the Sixers, though, Derek, the thing that people obviously discuss right away is he's going to the enemy. And why did the Sixers not give him that same number to fit him underneath the salary cap for that 2 for 12?
So I'm just going to be honest. This isn't the next podcast, so we won't spend too much time on it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I see the vision of what New York is doing. They already had Brunson and Cat, 2 pretty exploitable defenders. Adding Clarkson and Yabu, there's just a lot of people that I think you can hunt on that end. And they were already a pretty mediocre defense last year. I'm a little worried about I'm not worried because I have no rooting interest despite your cousin. But if I'm a Knicks fan, I'm a little worried about whether or not they're going to be able to make all of that work defensively. That being said, we're a Sixers show, so we'll pivot to that really quickly. You know, the sense that I got in talking to people around the team is they weren't going to do anything with this taxpayer mid-level until they got some resolution and some cost certainty on the Grimes deal. And to my knowledge, they did not offer Yabusele a contract because of that. Doesn't mean they weren't interested in it, but they felt like they had to wait for this Grimes situation to resolve itself before they could hard cap themselves at that 208.7 or 207.8. I might be getting dyslexic here. At that second apron threshold. You can go to Sixers.wiki. I have all that broken down to see that. And, I did the math earlier today and I tweeted out and I basically looked at it. And if you slotted Grimes in at $17 million and you slotted Guerschon Yabusele in at $5.7 million, which is what he signed for with New York, you would have had you had 14 players on the roster with about $1.6 million in space under that second apron, which right now becomes a hard cap. Now, Grimes might end up signing for less than $17 million. He might not. We'll get into that in a second. But just using that as a baseline, there's very little wiggle room. And I understand not wanting, it is one thing to say, yes, Yabusele would have been great to have back. And we can look at the Sixers, forward rotation and power forward rotation and understand why. But I think there's real downsides to hard capping yourself at that second apron threshold, especially when, the Sixers have always prioritized having trade flexibility heading into the season. And when you legitimately at that point wouldn't necessarily even be guaranteed you could sign a buyout guy throughout the season. And also I think one of the reasons, the Sixers have leverage right now over Quentin Grimes. And Quentin Grimes is far and away the priority. We went over this in another show. Even with the positional need you have with Yabusele, Quentin Grimes is just a younger, better player who has more value throughout the league. Mm-hmm. Getting him back, not only to keep him on the roster, but to get him back on a contract that you're comfortable with and a contract that has positive trade value is the number one priority this offseason. Again, not just because you would have Quentin Grimes in your rotation, but because then in 6 months, in a year, if you need to trade him or aggregate him in a bigger trade, you want to make sure he has positive trade value. One of the reasons the Sixers currently have leverage is because teams know they can spend whatever, if you submit an offer, Sixers can match anything, absolutely anything, whether it is $15 million, whether it is $25 million, the Sixers can match it. If the Sixers go out there and use their taxpayer mid-level, all of a sudden they become hard capped. There are now real legitimate contracts the Sixers would not be able to match because doing so would take them over the hard cap. They can't go over the hard cap because they just signed, Guerschon Yabusele. So there are ways, let's say the Nets right now they don't have a ton of cap space. They don't have enough to give him that $20 million per year, $25 million per year that he was looking for. But they also have a lot of either movable contracts or non-guaranteed contracts where they go like, all right, look, let's create a little bit of space, offer him $18 million per year, and make the Sixers sweat. Make the Sixers have to try to, shed some salary to go out there and be able to match this. I think if you sign Guerschon Yabusele, forget whether or not you could technically fit both of them under, and you don't know for sure. But if you do that and you say, all right, well, now I have only $17 million to offer, let's say, Quentin Grimes, you lose some leverage. You give teams a little bit of an in where they can stick their foot in and try to open that up and maybe make it so you lose your higher value, Quentin Grimes, your higher value priority. You threaten that by hard capping yourself. So I look, would I have had interest in bringing Yabusele back? Yeah. I think he's a little bit overrated by the fan base, if I'm being honest. Like, I think his defensive limitations at both the 5 and the 4 are concerning. I'm more comfortable signing someone like Watford on a minimum that doesn't hard cap you than offering a taxpayer mid-level to someone who does hard cap you. I think there's real limitations that come with a hard cap. I think it kind of sucks that the CBA has devolved into a point where, like, you lose good players because you don't want a hard cap. I understand why it happens, but it's not great. But it is the environment that you're operating under. And I understand why you wouldn't want to hard cap yourself to the lesser priority backup player, and that would then risk you signing the guy that's probably going to start and is your higher priority.
So let's look at it from the Yabusele side too, because I did mention this on the emergency pod a little bit earlier today, that the one thing after explaining how you and Kyle pointed things out immediately as this was dropped on social media, that the Spurs and the Nuggets were also two teams that were mentioned. Kyle had the Knicks in the free agency primer. You guys talked about that a lot. But those two teams in particular made those splashy big moves for what they did. So with it, the Nets make theirs, and we'll get to the Quentin Grimes piece a little bit further. But with the Yabusele side of it, Derek, he had to make a move. He had to make a decision on what he wanted to do, because he can't sit there and just wait for Quentin Grimes to figure out what is happening.
Well, and even let's say Quentin Grimes for some reason finds some leverage, because right now I think what's going on with Quentin Grimes is he's trying to find any leverage he can to try to get.
Shouldn't you do this like pre?
Sure. I think sometimes it takes people a little bit of time to accept reality.
Yeah.
And there all are weird things. Like we just saw, and we'll get to this later. We just saw the Bucks create cap space, which nobody thought they were going to create cap space. So he might be hoping to talk someone into like, hey, create a little bit of cap space, or maybe find a sign and trade partner who they could then go back and go to the Sixers and be like, please facilitate this. But I think it sometimes takes guys a little bit of time to accept reality, and I think that's probably where Quentin Grimes is at. But it is you can't ask Guerschon Yabusele to be like, hey, don't take any taxpayer mid levels now, because assuming that Quentin Grimes takes under $18 million, we'd love to bring you back. Like, he can't sit here and wait for a maybe. Yeah. That would be absurd.
Right. So he had to act on it, and he had to act on it as fast and get himself into a position where he felt like it was best for him.
Yeah.
And in this case, he gets the playoff team that was in the Eastern Conference Finals. The other two teams, Spurs were looking up as an option, and we already know who Denver is, and the fact that they made the change maybe hurt some things there for them. But he had to make a move and do something. So for them, This is where it gets a little tricky, because, yes, the Trendon Watford part, which we'll talk about again a little bit extensively later on, but they bring in a guy that's costs much less, and while he's a different player, he can fill some minutes for you out there on the floor with some different lineup there, some different machinations, some different combinations that you can go with for Trendon Watford. But for them to lose, and I agree with you that I think people do overrate Yabusele a little bit too much, but not all that much, because I do think the Sixers fans have a pretty good grasp on who they feel he is. I believe the one thing that they wanted to see, which is what they didn't have an opportunity to see, how he plays when they are at full strength.
Oh, sure.
And that is part of the problem. So maybe he is much better than the way that people are talking about. Maybe he is just that good. We just did not have a chance to see that play itself out because of all the injuries that affected them, and he had to play at the 2, the 3, part of the 3, the 4, and the 5, predominantly at the 5, and that's why the interest was there to bring him back. If you believe that, all right, Joel's going to give you 40 to 50 games, he'll play those. But you do have a Dembona, and you bring in Janai Broom, and you have some more insurance there in that front court that possibly allows him to play the 4 a little bit more. You have some other things that you can do, and that's why I think, at least I do believe that with the Sixers only having a limited amount of moves that they can make this offseason, unlike last summer, with the draft complete, they wanted to keep the guys that they liked. And while they do like Grimes, they do also know that he's going to cost so much more than what Yabusele was going to cost that they were more than willing to keep Yabusele. There are some who prefer Yabusele over Grimes. So that's why it's hitting the fan base the way that it is, and logically so. Because now the questions are, where else do they go? If it's Grimes and Watford, that's not enough for people. That's simply just not enough for them, for a team that most don't want to see them run it back in the first place. You want to have some reinforcements in there.
Sure. I think they're running it back.
Well, they're running it back.
To grips with that.
Yeah, and then you have $5 million on the books for Andre Drummond. Are they going to be able to make a move there? We talked about yesterday with Charlotte.
I think they're trying to get off that contract.
And Plumlee signs in Charlotte as a backup big. So that's one name that's off the board, where Andre Drummond. So that's where things are going. And then you see all these other things happening, of course, around the association. And Sixers fans are like, well, how come we couldn't do that?
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm just trying to explain why it played out this way.
Yeah.
I think a perfect world, I would have liked to have kept Yabusele back.
And at that number, you were good with?
Yeah.
Or a little bit less.
So like that number in a vacuum, I'm good with. If like that was, if that was not hard capping you, then yes, I'm good with that number. The hard cap, I think, is a bigger deal than people make it out to be. And, you know, like I said, even with Grimes coming back at a reasonable like $15 to $17 million number for the first year, that hard cap would have been tough to navigate. And I think fundamentally, I don't think Daryl Morey is going to, I'm not going to say he's not going to do it this year, but I think he's going to avoid that hard cap as much as he possibly can because it's so very limiting for in-season moves. But, you know, I think the number is fine. The hard capping, I think, is a much bigger issue in that contract.
All right. So,
and I think one of the stories I relayed a little while back is, you know, Daryl basically telling the Mavs, like, hey, the good front offices are the ones that, you know, draft Chandler Parsons, not giving a huge contract. I think this is a little bit like that too. Where I think Daryl, he'd rather sign Trendon Watford at a minimum and not hard cap himself than sign someone like Guerschon Yabusele, who might be a little bit better. Well, I think the defensive limitations, I think people are underselling. Who might be a little bit better, but who restrict future moves. And I think that's probably where Daryl's coming from.
So what money do they have left? Aside from being able to retain Quentin Grimes at the number that you talked about on the Anthony Gargano show this morning with Jamie and VG, and how that could go, what other money do they have left? What else could they possibly do? Do they have any veteran minimums that they could still go out there?
Veteran minimums you have infinite number of. The taxpayer mid-level they still have, but like I said, that triggers that second apron hard cap, and I just don't fundamentally think they're going to use that until they know how much they need to pay Quentin Grimes.
All right, so we'll get to Grimes in the next segment. We'll talk about Watford after that, and then we'll get to the other offseason moves that are happening. I'm looking at a list of just stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on here for the NBA. Do you have any interest now in the other big men on the veteran minimum that we talked about yesterday, where we threw out different names, where Jake LaRavia went immediately off the board to the Lakers? That was somebody that you and Kyle liked immediately. He also got a similar number to Yabusele. Yep. So that he was off the board. But names that we threw out there and saying, just look at this list, it's not all that great. Trendon Watford wasn't brought up, but he probably would have been on that list of, maybe some interest, but not all that great. Then you get back to the Trey Lyles, Bagley, those types of names that are still going to be available. Precious Achiuwa is a name that I brought up late in the conversation that we had. Would you have any interest in any of those big men to also tack on the Trendon Watford, especially after losing Yabusele?
So it's again, I think it's really tough to have this conversation before you know how much room you have to work with. Like if you can get, or if you can dump Andre Drummond. Like, would I have interest in Lyles? Yeah, but like I'm really concerned about being hard capped. And this is something I've had pretty much every summer. I just think people undersell. Like it's one thing to look at the contracts and the players. I think a lot of times we ignore the implications of the moves. And I truly blame the NBA for making this CBA so convoluted. There are just some moves that are tougher to make. because of what it means going forward. And this one is. So like Trey Lyles, if it's going to be at a minimum, sure, come on down. If it's going to be at a taxpayer, I'm a little concerned because that is, I think, going to inhibit you. It really depends.
Yeah.
So like, what were some of the names you brought up?
Somebody else, I think it was like it's okay to laugh, said Larry Nance in there also.
This is another one with Precious. We're like, do I prefer Precious over Trey Lyles? No. Do I prefer Precious on a minimum? Maybe.
So based on what each player may want, you accept the one that is actually going to take that minimum there. All right, we'll take a quick pause. We come right back. Guerschon Yabusele, he's out. He is now headed to the New York Knicks to play for the rival. And for some, I saw already on social media, a lot of good riddance since you're playing with the Knicks. Maybe if he would have gone to like Memphis or Utah or something like that,
I don't think Guerschon really appreciated the Philly-New York rivalry.
I got it. He didn't get a chance to really experience it, right? Because they weren't as good as the Knicks were. So good riddance, I know, for a lot of you, for Guerschon Yabusele. Now what? We'll talk about Quentin Grimes on the other side extensively, a little bit more as Derek breaks it down on what he could make, what it may look like, what's taking him so long. What does the Nickeil Alexander-Walker deal possibly also look like for him as he approaches the Sixers and try to get something done? We'll talk about it all. It's the PHLY Sixers Free Agency Frenzy presented by Rothman Orthopedics here on a Tuesday, day 2 of NBA free agency. A lot of madness out there. We'll be back.
And guys, just like your favorite team needs a home court advantage. Well, I don't know how that works in Vegas. We'll figure out how that works. Your home needs a home floor advantage, and Empire Tay can help you get it. Empire Tay has flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. We've all been to some of those big box stores, and while they might have a flooring department, the person that actually helps you with that flooring may have been doing sinks yesterday and could be stocking light bulbs tomorrow. Empire Tay lives and breathes flooring, and they will be with you every step of the way. Their flooring experts bring the showroom right to your home. You pick the right flooring and the right colors for your space so you can see how it looks with your furniture and in your house. You get precise measurements taken and have all of your questions answered so there are no surprises. With Empire Today, you get clear, upfront, and all-inclusive pricing, plus you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. PHLY listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code PHLY. You heard that right, a $350 discount with code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/PHLY for full details.
All right, so I walked into my garage yesterday and it felt like a sauna.
I got to tell you, Devon, this Philadelphia heat, especially coming off a cool period, no joke.
All right, so here's what I did. I got like 10 bags of ice, and I made myself an ice bath to stay cool instead of turning on the AC.
But why wouldn't you just turn on your air conditioning?
Well, I was trying to be energy efficient. Go green, go birds, right? And a little power dribble. Make sure I stay away from it.
Yeah, but, instead of icing yourself out, you could just check out Pico's energy-saving rebates. They've got deals on Energy Star cooling equipment that actually work, and they cut down your bills.
Hold on, so no more ice?
Unless it's an ice-cold beer, Devon, we don't need to talk about ice.
That makes a lot of sense.
So everybody just head to pico.com/ways to save. They've got tips for everything. Heating, cooling, lighting, you name it. Don't resort to ice like my friend Devon over here.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers.
So incredibly nice of Kyle to stop by from practice just to do that ad read. Unfortunately, he's got to get back to work, so we will see him tomorrow.
And he's trying to beat the rain.
Yes.
Yeah, he's trying to beat the rain, all the thunderstorms that have happened. It's free agency frenzy presented by Rothman Orthopedics. Before we get to Quentin Grimes, I have to tell you about our Make Your Move $36 intro offer. Sign up to become an official diehard member of the PHLY community, the PHLY family, and do so at the low price of $36 for the year. You get a free t-shirt. You get access to the Discord. You get opportunity to sign up and RSVP to events as a special member of the diehard community. And you get stories at allphly.com, like the Trendon Watford deal that took place yesterday. Kyle immediately wrote a story about that when Derek has something cooking as well. And you get all of that at allphly.com. The Flyers free agency got underway today. Charlie already with some stories up. Also, the Phillies, what's going on with the Phils, getting ready for another big series starting against the Padres. Jim Salisbury has you covered. And the Eagles, we're getting ready for training camp soon. So you want to make sure that you sign up, become a member at allphly.com. $36 intro offer. Runs through July 4th, so make sure you get in there before it's too late. All right, welcome back. Quentin Grimes. So the number that we brought up yesterday, let me just make sure I have the number correct as I look up this one for, what was it? For what? $62 million for the Atlanta Hawks with Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
That's like the low end. Yep.
That includes a player option and a trade kicker for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought that number up to you last night when we did the emergency pod. You said it was the low end. That was a number that we were kind of around the first time when we started discussing this offseason with Quentin Grimes. And then it elevated to much, much more, as high as 25 as a rumor out there that he and his representation have been looking for. But just for the people who may not have been able to catch up to that one, Derek, did not see you on the Anthony Gargano show this morning with Jamie and VG. How likely is it that he and his reps are looking at a number like that to start off with the Sixers, maybe at the low floor now, and then pushing it further to try to get as much as possible?
I mean, look, if you didn't see me on Ant's show this morning, I get it. I can't believe anybody watches me once a day. I certainly don't expect you to watch me twice a day. That's
I did.
Way
you
too
should,
much.
and go back and watch
Way
it
too
anyway.
much, Derek. No, like there's just not a lot of money out, and I'm not sure if there's any team right now who has more than a non-taxpayer mid-level exception to work with and offer Quentin Grimes a contract. And again, that starts at $14.1 million, a 4-year, $62 million deal. So in theory, you should be able to strong arm him and get him at 4 years, $62 million. You know, I do think there's two things that the Sixers are kind of fighting against, though, that might prevent them from doing that. First, he could just take that qualifying offer, $8.7 million for this year, try to become an unrestricted free agent next year. That would give him two benefits of trying to get the money that he wants. First, he's unrestricted, so the Sixers can't match. Whenever a team can match, that sort of decreases leverage that a player has, and decreases the number of offers that would be out there for them, which is part of what we talked about. That's why you don't hard cap yourself before you sign the guy, because then you lose that leverage, or at least some of that leverage. The other reason is there's just more money out there next year. There's more teams that project that to have cap space. So because of that, there's just a chance he's going to get a bigger payday next season than he would this year. Now, is that enough to be worth the risk, or enough to be worth only getting $8.7 million this year? I don't know. I think what I wrote earlier is, at $14 million, so you get 62 over the next 4 years. If he believes there's a $90 million contract out there, so now all of a sudden he's getting the 8.7 this year, the 90 for the next 4, $98.7 million over
For
5 years.
That's not bad.
He would have to in order to make up that, he wouldn't need to have a massive year or a massive contract 5 years down the road. You just need to have like $25, $30 million. But once you start getting into like the $16, $17, $18 million starting point for this year, then it becomes like, all right, I actually don't think I would be able to make up that money by going into, taking that qualifying offer and trying to be a restricted free agent. Certainly it might not be worth the risk. So it might make sense for him to take this, even if it's not the contract he wants, to take this rather than taking the qualifying offer.
Yeah, and
the other thing is just like, maybe he can find a team that will do a sign and trade this year. Maybe he can find someone like the Nets who are willing to shed some money. I don't think that's going to happen, but those are sort of like,
especially if they bring back Cam Thomas on a certain number. If I was talking to him and I was with his people, you might get the number, but playing time wise, Cam Thomas is going to be there. They draft all these young guys. You see the direction that they're going in. Where are you going to play? I mean, you're going to play, but are you going to play the minutes that you want plus get that contract? I don't know. Looking at the number from some of the names, at least for next summer, if he was an unrestricted free agent, there are a few big player option names like Luka Doncic, Zach LaVine, Trae Young, stuff like that. But the unrestricted, he's one of the younger ones where De'Aaron Fox, if he doesn't get his extension, he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. CJ McCollum, Chris Middleton, Kristaps Porzingis, but they're all, again, older players. Tobias Harris, unrestricted. Kale is in there where he'll be unrestricted, so he'll be a name that's on top of the list. Anthony Simons will also be out there as a top of the list type of name, especially depending on what he does with the Boston Celtics this year, if he stays there. And just a number. So he'll be in the mix with a much better class, in my opinion, next summer than it is this year. And
a lot of this is like, look, it's one thing for you and I to sit here and be like, well, taking the qualifying offer isn't worth the risk. I don't think it, quite frankly, is. Like, if the Sixers just come in and offer like a $16, $17 million starting point, maybe that gets him 4 years, $70 million. In 5 years, he can get let's say another $20 million. He gets $90 million over 5 years. That's a pretty good payday. Risking that to go into a situation where you're going to get way fewer shots, because Paul George is back, because Jared McCain is back, because Tyrese Maxey is there for the full time, VJ Edgecombe is there. He's not going to put up the stats, and that's fine. Like I've mentioned before, he's not actually being paid for his productivity last year to be consistent going forward. But there is just a risk, whether it's injury, whether it's perception of taking a step back, whether it's just the money not being there, that he would be taking a massive risk by taking that qualifying offer and trying to chase that money. And if the money that's available to him isn't all that much higher, it just makes no sense to take that risk. So I think ultimately, Quentin Grimes probably comes to that conclusion and comes back to the Sixers on a deal you can live with. But he might just have a bigger appetite for risk than you or I would.
He's already taken that risk by not signing it last summer. He bet on himself.
It worked out for him.
It worked out
for him.
But you just don't want to take that chance, especially all the things that could go negatively for you in that. But the positive side is he did show. Number one, he's going to have the same coach. He did show that he can perform in two different spots as the point guard and the shooting guard. And there's a real possibility that he's going to start on a team that is looking to be a playoff squad in the Eastern Conference. And if he is able to hold that for the duration of the regular season, that's going to be a pretty good look for him. And I mean, look, he not the 20 plus that you talked about that he averaged down the stretch. But if Derek, he averages about 15, shoots a pretty good percentage again from behind the 3-point line, shows his defensive chops again, where he can do those things, shows both on the ball and off the ball work. That will work out well for him next offseason as well. Yeah. So if he did bet on himself, you do understand it in that way, just because, again, let me try it again, let me go. There'll be more teams that can throw me the money that I want. And I just did this on a playoff team. I could see where he might make that decision of this is where I want to go. It's not exactly what I wanted to do, but it's where things are right now. This is how it played out. And nobody's banging down his door right now. Nobody's banging down the door to offer him anything. So it is right now in the favor of the Sixers, where it's worked out pretty decently for them. And with that Nickeil Alexander-Walker number, that's like, hey, my man, this guy's been to, in his role with the Minnesota Timberwolves, he's been to the conference finals 2 consecutive years, and look at what he did to accept what he did with the Atlanta Hawks. Now, Grimes can sit there and say, I'm not him, I'm better, and all that, but a lot of times these numbers are set, at least as the example, based on what are out there for you in that very same position, and you haven't done what he has done. As you laid it out, as many people have talked about, you're doing this on a team where you can get the shots because there's nobody else out there. He has done this where he has been in a big-time role with Minnesota, and that's why the Sixers are going to throw that at him and his reps because, hey, my man, you haven't done this yet. How are we supposed to know that you're going to be able to do this in the same exact spot? Yeah,
it will be interesting what he comes in. And my guess is you're talking slightly over the mid-level, in part because I think you're like I said, you're paying against the possibility he could take that qualifying offer and try to hit free agency next year. Not too much above, though. And in part just because, you don't want to give the lowest or the exact lowest amount you have to. You want to keep your guy a little bit happy. My guess would be $15 to $17 million starting point. And if that's the case, I think he's going to be a tradable contract, even if he ends up having, I don't want to call it a down season, but a season where he has fewer opportunities and doesn't have the ball as much.
Yeah, Holy Cannoli with the super chat on this topic. What teams are left that can offer Grimes over the Sixers qualifying offer? Will they really need to offer 15 mil plus?
Oh, over the qualifying offer. Again, that qualifying offer is 8.7. That's not a real offer. That's like something you have to submit in order to keep a guy a restricted free agent, and something he can then accept. But that's not a real offer. It's built in based on the CBA and your previous earning and all this stuff. In terms of over the qualifying offer, a lot of the teams that still have a portion of their non-taxpayer mid-level can offer more than that. I think the starting point really is the full non-taxpayer mid-level, which is $14.1 million.
He would be in a really good backcourt if he came back with Maxey, McCain, and Edgecombe.
Yeah.
I wonder how much he's thinking about the future or the very near future of the number 3 overall pick. Eventually taking some of those reps, those minutes, and then him being shipped out. Maybe you do that with your current contract when you sign it and go to another spot overall. All right. We take our final break. We come back and we talk a little bit more about Trendon Watford, his fit. If you missed our emergency podcast,
Kyle, come back. We got ad reads to do. Come on,
come on back, man. And maybe you pop in like you did last night on our emergency pod unexpectedly after doing his writing.
He wasn't even invited.
He wasn't invited. I think he felt some type of way, but we welcomed him in because he is part of the family. We'll come back. We'll talk about Trendon Watford. Get your thoughts on Trendon Watford as well, and we'll get into the rest of the so many things that are going on in the NBA, man. How the East has changed a little bit. What's going on out West? What in the world is happening?
I feel like I'm that It's Always Sunny meme where I need a whiteboard and I need all kinds of
That's why
notes.
It is free agency, and it is free agency frenzy right here on the PHLY Sixers Podcast presented by Rothman Orthopedics.
For the past 30 years, Golden Nugget Jewelers has operated out of the very same location in the heart of Philadelphia. Customers from across Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and even Baltimore and New York City have come to Golden Nugget Jewelers to find that perfect engagement ring or wedding band. Their staff is highly trained and dedicated to providing a personalized shopping experience. Golden Nugget Jewelers has a vast selection of engagement rings and wedding bands, along with high-end watches, fashion jewelry, and sparkling diamond necklaces, bracelets, earrings, and more. And you receive a final cleaning and a written appraisal with every engagement ring purchase. Golden Nugget Jewelers has been a family-owned and operated business since 1987, right there on Chestnut and 8th in downtown Philly. You deserve an expert and the best price. Golden Nugget Jewelers, where Philly gets engaged. Visit goldennuggetjewelry.com today to learn more.
All right, and I got to tell you about our presenting sponsor here on the show and for the entire offseason with the Philadelphia 76ers. That is our good people from Rothman Orthopedics, and we talk about getting you back to what you love, especially this summer, whether you're biking down the Kelly Drive there or running around the track, chasing kids through the sprinkler, or just maybe on the hiking trail and you sprain your ankle, something along those lines. Nothing as serious as my ACL and my Achilles surgeries that I did have at Rothman Orthopedics, but you do get to go to Rothman Orthopedics to get checked out. So from aches and pains, old injuries flaring up, and those summer adventures where you're just constantly rubbing that knee, that shoulder, whatever it is, Rothman's teams of experts is here to help with evidence-based care and a commitment to restoring your mobility. They'll get you back out there stronger than ever. And if you're looking for a location, don't worry, got you covered. Rothman proudly serves dozens of communities across Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and even Florida. If you're there in Florida, fun fact, when I tore my Achilles, these guys know here, Bree knows as well, I went to Florida on my vacation. I could have gotten some work done down there and then came back when I got it done, but I did not. But if you are in Florida and you need some place to go, Rothman Orthopedics has those 30-plus convenient offices, urgent cares, and walk-in centers as well, and including 3 here in Philly, located in Center City, Northeast, and now at the Navy Yard in South Philadelphia as well. So if you're looking to get checked out and the pain is slowing you down this season, take the first step. Head to rothmanortho.com/PHLY and schedule your appointment today. Rothman Orthopedics, your summer, your mobility, their mission. Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers show here, Free Agency Frenzy, presented by Rothman Orthopedics.
Were you in Florida when you got injured? Or
No.
did you get injured and then go to Florida?
So I got injured on a Sunday playing ball. I went to get checked out, I think it was Tuesday, because I got the hookup at Rothman Orthopedics. They was like, come on in. Got in. And I needed to make sure that I could fly because we were going to Florida. They were like, yes, you're good to fly. Just go get a compression sleeve. They gave me some crutches and my boot to travel and make sure that I was good to go to fly. So
it's fun traveling in a boot, isn't it?
It is the best.
I was over in London when I broke my foot. And our health insurance don't work over there. So I'm sitting there walking around London covering the Sixers games because they played over there.
I remember.
And I'm sitting there with a cane, like trying to walk around. Oh, it was fun. My foot was the size of a freaking volleyball.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so
fun.
Good times. Good times trying to fly with crutches, a boot, and all of that stuff. By the way, Al, the 2-minute warning continues to say, don't do it. Well, I've already gotten the invite.
Don't do what?
Play ball again.
Oh,
yeah.
You can't not. You're a hooper.
It's in my DNA. I have no choice. I have no choice. Whether it's pop a shot or running up and down the court 4 or 5-on-5, I'm back. All right, you're back. We're back. Trendon Watford, 2 years, and right under $6 million in total for that one.
It's a minimum salary. So it's 2.4 this year, and I think 2.9 next year. I think is how it breaks down.
Both guaranteed.
Yeah.
So
I have to double check that.
Double check on that one? Okay. So with him, the player, I gave my assessment last night. You did as well on our emergency podcast. But for the people who don't know about Trendon Watford, I'll just start before I pass it off to you because I did see a lot of Watford with the Brooklyn Nets when Mikal was there.
As we go to our Brooklyn Nets correspondent, Devon Gibbons.
Thank you for having me, Derek. I appreciate it. You have a great show here. So for me, again, watching him the year that we were there for the year and a half because he was in Portland when we got there, and then the full year the next year. And he is I said it to Derek that he's like a Kyle Anderson type of game. But he's a little more athletic, has a big-time wingspan at 6'8", 6'9", but he has a wingspan over 7 feet. He plays below the rim. He will surprise you from time to time. He gets to the rim and he'll dunk one on you, but has a pretty good handle, is a willing passer, more than willing passer.
He's a pretty good passer for his position.
Yeah, he is for his size. I think he played guard for a long time, and that's just still with who he is. Can shoot the basketball more so mid-range where you trust him than you do behind the three-point line. He's not a great three-point shooter. Will take them, but he has a different kind of release where it's like one that when he does get to it, it's coming from behind his head a little bit and taking that shot. But he does a lot of good things to help you as an overall, he's a basketball player. So when you think of a 6'9" forward, like we talk about with Guerschon Yabusele or someone that has a more defined skill like Cam Johnson in today's NBA, where he's a shooter and can put the ball on the floor. He's not that. He is one that can do just a lot of different things, and you can put him in a lot of different lineups for Nick Nurse. So that's where he is as a player. So the Sixers are kind of getting a do-it-all type of player. But let's be clear. He is signed at that minimum because he is a rotational player. He's not one that's going to come in and start and be that type of player. He's not going to solve all of your problems, but he is one that you can trust out there on the floor. There's not a lot of foot speed. He's fast enough, quick enough, and deceptive with the basketball where he'll catch a lot of guys with some moves, some in and outs, some misdirection things that he can do. He has some wiggle to his game as well, even at that spot. He can bring the ball up the floor. He can initiate the offense. The problems that they've had in the middle of the zone that we've talked about, he can be that guy that can flash to the free throw line, make some decisions as a quick turnaround, whether I'm spraying it out with the passing ability, lobbing it to a cutter along the baseline, throwing it up for a lob, or even that runner, floater that he really has that runner floater game there in the middle of the floor from that 12 to 13 foot range. So he is a player that can just do a lot of different things for your basketball team. You'll like him, I think. You might love him as a fan favorite because he is tough, he's strong, and he plays to the crowd as well. He's one that will get into talking junk with the opponent that might endure the Philadelphia 76er fans. So that's my scouting report on him. And I do think that it was an under-the-radar, a decent enough move for the Sixers.
Yeah. I do think it is a lot of people are going to focus on the shooting, and I get it. Mm-hmm. And the numbers were pretty good. Like over the last 3 years, we're talking 36%-ish range. It's on a low volume, and it's a pretty slow release. And whenever you have that, defenses just aren't going to be concerned about helping off a guy who might make 1-3 every 2 games. So they're going to help off of you. They're going to, he's not going to have the kind of gravity that you would want, but that's why he's on a minimum. Yeah. Like if he had his skill set and had a reliable jumper, he's making significantly more than that. They have had so few real creative players, especially at the forward spots over the last couple of years, that to me, it's a little bit of a breath of fresh air. And it's a little bit in the, die another way kind of mold where like, yeah, he has his flaws, but he has unique strengths that the Sixers just haven't had at that position or really in their role players outside of maybe someone like Batum that I'm excited to see it.
Yeah.
And, he's not going to be a great defender, but with a 7'2" wingspan, he should be adequate-ish, maybe. He's not going to be a great shooter, but he'll occasionally knock down a shot. And he's someone who can actually, run some offense at a spot you don't traditionally get it. And I think it's going to be real intriguing. And is he going to start? Is he going to come off the bench? I don't really know. All I know is I think the Sixers got an actual guy at a position and skill set of need for the minimum, and I'm happy with it.
Defensively, your thoughts on what he is, who he is. He can move his feet. He is strong, so he won't be bullied in that way. But again, to make it very clear, he's not one that's going to be put out there as a defensive stopper.
No, not at all.
No.
Yeah, you're hoping that he can at least be adequate against a couple of positions. He's not going to excel against any of them.
Yeah, he'd be a good team defender. He will surprise you with some help defense, some block shots at the rim, where as a help man coming over, and again, he has that wingspan, so he can help clean up some of the mistakes. Lineup possibilities, you can play him with a lot of different players. You can run him out there with any of the guards. You can run him out there with Oubre, Paul George as well, because again, he's not going to be the focal point of any offense, but he can be one that will set them up and do those things. And when we even talk about entry passes, we were joking about how he might be the top 3 best on the team right now, just from coming in. He is one that with that size too, and that guard instinct that he has, he can make those entry passes where you don't worry about it all that much. You can trust him as an inbounder as well. The Nick Batum comparison is a good one for what the Sixers had Nick Batum doing here. I don't think he's going to be a starter. I do believe he's going to be one that comes off the bench in that role.
I think your starting lineup right now is Maxey Grimes, Oubre, Paul George, and Embiid.
Yep, absolutely. So good signing.
For the 3 games, all of them are healthy.
100%. Yeah. So a good signing. A decent, a good under the radar minimum signing that it won't hurt you at all. All it does is they did exactly what they were doing. They made this move to help them, and I think he does help them in that role that you're talking about, just to bring some different things.
Yeah, and that's one thing that Daryl has done to mixed levels of success with. Obviously Kelly was a good minimum signing. Yabusele last year was a good minimum signing. Had a couple misses. We won't talk about the short backcourt kings that we all dreaded over last year. But I think this is something he has done at least reasonably well, and I think this could be the next in line. I think this, like you mentioned, this isn't one where we sat here and we talked about during our pre-free agency show.
Yep.
In part because you don't tend to focus on minimum salaries when you're doing a show like that. And we had a lot of other stuff to talk about, but it was a little bit under the radar, but I think it's a logical under the radar move.
Hedfa says that Watford starts by Christmas.
Well, but obviously because 4 players are going to be out of the starting lineup by then.
Are the Sixers playing on Christmas Day this year, you think?
I don't think so, no.
I don't think so either.
Why would you?
Yeah. No. 2 years in
Which
a row.
I'm okay with. I'm 100% okay with.
2 years
Absolutely.
in a row. Yeah.
I don't know why people want Christmas games. Like I've got so many other things to do. Like I love you guys. And Bree, you're incredible. I just have other things I would prefer to do on Christmas Day.
I don't want to work Christmas either.
And this year would be you and Kyle. Since
Yeah.
I did the one with Kyle and you the last 2 years, and Kyle would be the one on duty this year. One more question about Watford and Nurse, and then we'll get to the super chats from Al. We'll pivot to the NBA transactions going on around the free agency frenzy. Nothing while we were doing the show, by the way. Nothing. Yeah. Again, nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Nurse with Watford. Anything that you've seen from the Raptors days, including his 2 years here, including his time here, where you see, all right, I can see him as a player, because we've talked about, hey, we saw you do all this stuff with Toronto with those players. Where was that? Here with the Sixers. So anything that with Watford in general that you look back to the Raptors days and even the short time here in Philly where you say, okay, I see where I can maybe envision what Nurse does with Watford.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think he necessarily fits the scheme all that great. Nick wants guys who can help into the paint, show ball handlers a crowd, and be able to recover out the perimeter. I don't think he necessarily changes direction all that well or covers ground all that well. I think the wingspan will help. It's better to be, I don't want to say slow, because he's not slow, but not super quick at changing direction, but have like a 7'2" wingspan, than be Kyle Lowry, who's slow changing direction and doesn't have the wingspan. So that'll help. He's not your prototype Nick Nurse defensive forward though. Offensively, I think offensively, Nick likes to give the ball to forwards and let them create at times, probably sometimes too much. But he also likes players who can play out of random sets and just make quality decisions. So I think that is more of a Nick Nurse player than a lot of the other forward options they've had here. So offensively, yeah, a little bit. Defensively, yeah.
All right. Gene Ross says Nurse would turn him into Siakam.
I mean, he would have to get quite the athleticism infusion there, but sure.
That would be nice.
I like the optimism.
That would be nice.
I like the optimism.
That would be nice.
Then again, like there was a time where Siakam couldn't shoot either, and he was hesitant to shoot. You remember the Sixers, Brett correctly deduced that he was only comfortable shooting from the corners, and they would just abandon him at the top of the key. And Siakam got over that. So who knows? He could grow as a shooter.
Yes, he could. Yes, he could. Even in year 5, he could do that. All right, this is, in fact, the PHLY Sixers Free Agency Frenzy presented by Rothman Orthopedics. Make sure you visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY. We tell you that because we're going to Free Agency Frenzy around the NBA to catch all of you up on things that you may have missed. So, Derek, I'll ask you first, though, before we get to...
Are we doing like another 2-hour podcast
I
now?
know, man. Yeah, I know. Before we get to just running some things down, what's the one that surprised you the most?
I mean, Miles Turner to the Bucks. Like,
Stunned.
Came out of nowhere. In
Stunned.
part because the Bucks didn't have cap space. In part because, so in order to generate that cap space, they had to take Damian Lillard's contract, which had 2 years left.
2 years
and stretch that out. You basically waive him and stretch that cap hit out over a 5-year period. So you're limiting the per year cap hit. And I just don't think anybody saw either the waive and stretch or them pursuing Miles. I bet you the Pacers didn't envision that. And now you're looking at it from two perspectives. Obviously there was a report that Giannis wasn't super thrilled with losing Dame. You never really know. Like a lot of times you've got to say things in order to back your teammates.
Yeah.
But like when you sit down and you think about it logically, he might be like, oh man, I'm actually excited because now we have a better chance to compete next year. We'll see how that plays out. But it is, it's stunning because I think now the Bucks, assuming Giannis is okay with it, have a little more life to them. And the Pacers, I can't remember a worse 2-week stretch in NBA history than what the Pacers are going through right now.
Man.
To have Halliburton out for next year, to have lost Turner, they're just getting decimated. And there is so much uncertainty at the top of the Eastern Conference. Even now with the Bucks, they got younger. They got a younger Brook Lopez replacement. But there's still just uncertainty up and down from all of the good teams in the conference that it's going to be fascinating to watch play out. I do wonder how much of this is going to drive Daryl Morey's thinking like, hey, you're a lot of good luck away from, being right there. But boy, that's just an incredible blow to the Pacers.
Damian Lillard had $113 million left on the remaining 2 years.
I think Bobby Marks, I might be having this wrong, that the previous most still owed on a wave and stretch was like $30-something million.
Unbelievable. All right, so free agent center Miles Turner, as Derek pointed out, 4-year deal, $107 million to sign with the Milwaukee Bucks. Just absolutely gutting the Indiana Pacers because they felt like after making the run that they can keep him. But there was also reports, Derek, that they only offered him 3 for $60.
Yeah.
This is a big difference.
No, and they've been there have been rumblings that they would be willing to move off of Turner for years now, and they never did. And it looked like it finally paid off for them because they had a team together and put it together and really came together as a group. But at some point, it's like, if you're not going to commit to him, you've got to try to get value. And now they've got nothing. And if you actually wanted to keep him around, 360 wasn't going to get it done.
No, it was not.
100% understand why somebody with that pedigree,
disrespectful.
Yeah, wouldn't have wanted to do that.
Yeah, that was disrespectful. So I don't blame him at all if that is in fact true. The Bucks also traded Pat Connaughton and 2 second-round picks to Charlotte for, he just keeps getting moved around. Vasily Micic is going to the Bucks now, so he's on the move. Then they also brought in Gary Harris on a 2-year deal to sign with the Bucks. They brought back Gary Trent Jr. As well. And I want to say Taurean Prince. So Gary Trent Jr., 2-year deal, 7.5. And I want to say Taurean Prince agreed to a 2-year deal as well to stay with the Bucks, 7.1 player option in year number 2. So they add Gary Harris to the mix. They bring in Miles Turner. So while the reports were out there that Giannis was furious that this deal happened, they're at least not sitting on their hands. They're trying to do stuff to make him feel comfortable with coming back, making sure he doesn't ask for a trade, and competing in the East.
Yeah, and I think this is what they have to do, because maybe Giannis is furious about losing a friend. But I think he also would have been furious when he got on the court and had no help around him.
Yeah.
And that's what you've got to worry about. And they've got some real contributors put around them, especially when they were looking at it like next year was going to be a dead season for them. And you can't have a dead season when you're talking about a 29, 30-year-old star and MVP caliber player. You just can't do it. Sixers might have a dead season, but that's because that 29, 30-year-old, or not 30-year-old MVP caliber star is not able to stay on the court. It's different.
Right.
So I think what they're doing is smart. I think it's pretty creative what they're doing, and it's certainly stunning as heck what they're doing.
Yep. So, and they already lost Brook Lopez to the Clippers.
Yep.
So they had to do something at the center position. Jericho Sims also re-signed back with Milwaukee. He was not going to be an answer next to Giannis for the season. They also brought back Kevin Porter Jr. on a 2-year deal as well. So active in Milwaukee. All right, let's get to some of the things that we missed when we signed off at 7 p.m. yesterday. Right away, Trey Jones, he did that while we were on the show, 3 years, $24 million to stay with the Bulls. All right, good money for him. They have a lot of guards. Something has to give there as well. D'Angelo Russell, 2-year deal, $13 million to the Mavs. We expected that. That was something that we discussed as well. The bust out for us, as we were sitting there eating pizza and some wings, all four of us talking, the Nuggets traded Michael Porter Jr. to an unprotected 2032 first-round picks to the Brooklyn Nets for Cam Johnson, and Cam has 2 years left on his deal. So we were all like, whoa, there it is. And I wasn't all that surprised that they moved off of Michael Porter Jr. I guess it was more about Brooklyn.
Yeah, I mean, from Denver's perspective, you trade, one fourth option, making $37 million for another one making $23 million. Mm-hmm. I think with that, they opened up the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. So basically, they were able to, by sending out a first-round pick with MPJ, they were able to get back Cam Thomas and a second.
Cam
Johnson. Yeah, too many Cams. And a second player. So depth has been what has crippled them over the last couple of years. They were able to improve their depth a little bit here with that. It is a heavy price to pay. I think that was their only trade. It was like a 2032 first-round pick or something like that. And it was their only tradable first-round pick that they had available to them.
And Jokic will be long gone.
Oh, yeah. He'll be, yeah. So they have limited moves left, but I think this is the way you got to get creative when you're boxed in like they were boxed in.
Later on, or earlier.
Who did they sign with that mid-level? I forget.
So they did bring in Bruce Brown. They brought him back. I don't know if that was the mid-level or not, but they brought him back. I think it was a veterans minimum.
Yeah,
Bruce
I think
Brown.
that was a minimum.
All right, so he was brought back.
Because I remember, I think nobody said the terms, and whenever they don't say the terms, that's a minimum.
Yeah, and they also traded today, sending Dario Saric to Sacramento for Jonas Valanciunas to be a backup 5 to Jokic, so a different type of 5 for him behind that. So that's what I remember for Denver. I think they did something else, but I don't have it written down right here. We'll get back to that one. Also, some rumblings out there, some news. Ty Jerome, 3-year deal, $28 million to go to Memphis. So Memphis active in their free agency, and just with the Jaren Jackson Jr. part and bringing back Santi Aldama, bringing in Ty Jerome.
Apologies to
Heffa. Bringing in Ty Jerome, especially after losing Desmond Bane, adding Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, another player in the backcourt. Kevon Looney, 2 years, $16 million to the Pelicans.
That one was a bit of a stunner to me.
Yeah.
He's just, he doesn't move as well as he used to.
He's still 29.
I know. He seems like a very old 29, doesn't he? And I'm just not sure they necessarily needed the depth. It was
except
surprising.
for just bringing in a veteran big to kind of mentor Yves Missi and Derek Queen. The problem is you gave them $8 million.
Yeah,
that's the problem. So
and that was what, that would have been a portion of their non-taxpayer, I think, right?
Yeah. So big money there. Reunited with Jordan Poole in New Orleans.
No, Jordan Poole seemed like legitimately excited about that, which is good. That's cool.
He did. Clint Capella, 3 years, $21.5 to go back to Houston after re-signing Steven Adams, and you already have Alperen Sengun.
They have so much depth there. Yeah, I don't get that one either. And we talk a lot about like the middle class being squeezed with the new CBA, and then backup big men are getting 3-year deals at nearly $10 million per.
Speaking of backup big men getting $10 million a year, $41 million for Luke Cornett over 4 years to go to San Antonio.
Yep. Yep, and that was also a portion of their mid-level, and that's where a lot of people started looking at it and going like, "Oh man, well if they use 9.1 there, they only have $5 million left of their mid-level. Maybe the Sixers can keep Guerschon Yabusele." I think that's in part why it stings too, because people started getting their hopes up when Luke Cornett signed there. Yeah, I don't hate the fit. I'm just that's a good chunk of change for Luke Cornett.
That's a lot of money. 4 years for him, 2 years, $18 million. A surprise for us. We thought it was the Lakers. Brook Lopez to the Clippers.
Yeah.
Accepting that backup role, but he got some good money on a playoff team, man.
Yes, he did. 37-year-old Brook Lopez.
Yes, he did. Luke Garza then goes to Boston, 2 years, 5.5. Whatever. It's okay. Good for him. We mentioned Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 4 for 62. Mm-hmm. And we also have Tyus Jones, 1 year, $7 million to the Magic. So a nice backup there for Jalen Suggs, should things happen. That's a good one there. Nigel Hayes coming back overseas, going to the Suns. People forgot about Nigel Hayes from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Going to the Suns. So Luke Kennard, 1 year, $11 million to the Hawks. They're loading up there, man.
Yeah, they've had, and we can, Kennard is whatever, but I think all their other moves, they've done a really good job of balancing a long-term view and vision, along with improving their team pretty substantially for the season. I really like what they're doing there.
We already mentioned Jordan Clarkson to the Knicks. That is expected tomorrow when he clears waivers. And another big one. NBA MVP, Finals MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has agreed to a 4-year, $285 million Supermax contract, the largest annual salary in NBA history of over $70 million a year.
Yeah.
Whew.
No, I mean, look, he's
right
worth,
time, man.
He's worth every penny.
Yes, he is.
You do have to always look at this it doesn't. Forget the dollar amounts, forget the totals, forget the per year averages. It's percentage of the salary cap. The only reason players are getting more money now is because there's more revenue coming in now, which means the salary cap is going up now. That money can either go to the owners or it can go to the players, and I know which one I would prefer it to. There is some sticker shock, which honestly I think probably paints a lot of the Quentin Grimes conversation. People still remember from 10 years ago where $15, $17 million, that would be star level money. It's not. That's fifth or sixth, fifth starter or maybe first off the bench level money, because revenue has just continued to go up and up and up. Although next year the projections that's not going to go up. It's still going to go up, just not as much as maybe they originally thought. Either way, these new contracts are it's how much? People are going to be, there's going to be $1 billion, not endorsement deals, not any of that stuff. There's going to be just $1 billion in NBA salary contracts coming up soon. And someone like Shai, who's, what was it? 285 over a 4-year extension.
Yeah, the extension.
And you got a long prime. You're gonna make $1.52 billion someday.
And he's gonna get another contract after that.
Oh yeah, and that's not gonna be for less.
No, it's not. All right, quickly running through this one. Dennis Schroeder, 3 for 45. So after all that minimum deals and all that stuff,
we thought he was gonna be the first one off the board because everyone was talking about it.
I know, 3 for 45 for him. And another big one, as Derek talked about money-wise for role players, Jakob Poeltl agreeing to a 4-year, $104 million deal to stay with the Toronto Raptors. They failed to include him in other trade discussions. Wasn't it Kevin Durant and Suns and all that? They're like, nope, can't blame this one on Masai. 4 years, $104 million, and he will pick up his player option to 2026-27 at $19.5 million and adding on those 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, look, Pearl's fine. He's a fine player.
Woo! That is some money.
I'm just surprised there's a center getting a 4-year deal right now. The per-year contract is whatever. I'm surprised he got a 4-year deal. And I'm surprised from the Raptors, quite honestly. They need big men, but...
That is some money. That is absolutely some money. All right, we do have some super chats, and we got to get to the big deal. But first, let's just tell everybody we're going to hit overtime here. So make sure you head over to allphly.com for a quick overtime that we have running for you all. And with it, we thank everybody on the television side, on the Fast channel, for all of you from Xfinity to Roku to Samsung. We thank you all for hanging out with us on the TV side. Head over to allphly.com to finish things off as we get ready for the big deal. And the big deal is that...
big deal is Shai. He got the literal big deal.
That is the big deal. So the big deal by Cherry Hill, Kia and Jeep, that's a big number, man.
Oh, but you were going to go, I was making a joke, but you were going to go with a different thing, right?
I was going to go with a different thing. The big deal is the Damian Lillard piece.
That's a huge deal.
That's a huge deal.
So that's a bigger NBA deal.
Yeah.
I was just making a joke that Shea had a literal big deal, but like everyone knew he was staying put. The bigger deal is absolutely Dame.
Yeah, so the big deal presented by Cherry Hill Jeep is Damian Lillard getting that stretch for what, 113 million, I think I said, over the 2 years.
Something
and they
like that,
stretch it out over 4 or 5 years. And where do you think he goes, man? Where do you think he goes? Because somebody's going to bring him in, and they're going to take a chance, and they're going to give him the money. Miami, could be Boston, where we already know where they currently are with their situation. They moved on from Drew Holiday. Unless they're just ready to hand the keys to Peyton Pritchard, would that not be an interesting destination for him as he rehabs?
Is he going to play next year?
Not next year, the following year.
But like, I mean, it's clearly nobody's going to be. First of all, nobody can claim him off of waivers, but nobody would anyway. Like, do you give him a 2-year deal just to make sure he doesn't sign anywhere else next summer?
He's not. So something doesn't happen with the current season where it then forces his number a little bit higher if he's willing to do it.
I am terrified of
going back to Portland.
Well,
maybe
both his age is already showing a bit of decline.
Yeah.
And now you've got the injury. That's a tough one to come back from at that age for a small guard.
Yeah.
Everyone's bringing up Miami in the chat. Look, they have wanted him for a long time. I think they just wanted a healthy version of him. But
yeah, they did.
That's wild.
He's going to have some suitors, though. He will absolutely have suitors. I got a place for you to go.
I mean, it's sort of
get it done.
I mean, it's not sort of like KD, but it's sort of like what happened to KD, where he was going to be out and Brooklyn signed him anyway. But the difference is KD was still KD.
Yeah, he was. I mean, Dame was still an all-star this year.
No, he was good. I just think at his age, what was KD when he signed with the Nets? Like 33,
so he'll
32?
be 38, 39 this year. So he was about 32.
I just think he and his archetype and
33.
his size and his position, like there was still, I think, more confidence he would be a good player when he came back. I think there's a lot of uncertainty with Dame.
I think a lot of people are right with Miami. Depending on how Yakachonis develops this year, we'll see about that. Boston, Portland, those are some interests for me to watch with Damian Lillard. Yeah. That is our big deal. I know people, brought to you by Cherry Hill Jeep. I know people buy Jeeps elsewhere. I just don't know why. Drive home in your new Jeep today, just minutes from all bridges, or available online 24/7 at jeepofcherryhill.com. Let's get to the Super Chats. Then we say goodbye with our, of course, roll call at the end. Al says, do y'all think bonus ceiling could be Serge Ibaka?
It's very aggressive.
If he got to Serge Ibaka, you won that one, man. That's your starting
and
4 or 5.
Serge was an incredible three-point shooter for his archetype.
And he developed that because he didn't have that early on in OKC, but he really got that going, and was he a really good player.
Yeah, no, that's
a nice comparison.
That's aggressive,
though.
Al.
Like,
that's aggressive.
Like size-wise,
body type, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
I think Bona's going to be good defensively, but it's going to take quite a bit of offensive development for him to get there.
Bagley, Nance, 2 free agents, or Bona is a better option. I'm presuming talking about with Watford at the 4. From Al, once again, the 2-minute warning.
But I mean, Bona, I don't think is an option at the 4. I think he's just better at a 5.
Yeah, but would they maybe tinker with it from time to time, different lineups? Like we saw Drummond out there at the same time, Yabusele obviously out there, but
but I don't like those either. If you remember,
I do know that.
No,
but I'm just saying what Nurse did.
He will experiment from time to time. Sure. I don't like Bona as an option at the 4 because I need some level of shooting and ball handling there. I'm also not a big Bagley fan, in part because of those reasons. Look, Nance we talked about, and Nance was actually somebody that we brought up. Fine, but and Nance over the last 2 years shot the ball really well. I think you're underselling Watford a little bit. I do.
I don't know if you saw those videos of Bona shooting those threes this offseason. Corner threes, man.
That's great. I've seen videos of Ben Simmons shooting threes too.
Form looks better with Bona than it actually does. Still no Simmons news, by the way. No Simmons news. He's still a free agent. Finally, Riaz says, don't you see this front court getting killed on the glass with Oubre and George in the starting lineup? I feel the offensive rebounding was bad last season as well.
No, I look. I think they're going to get killed on the glass. I think that's true.
That's where Drummond was supposed to help, but he couldn't play. He wasn't himself, and he didn't help.
That was, if you go back to our preseason shows from last year, which please don't, because we said a lot wrong in those shows. But that was like our primary concern heading into the season was I think they're going to get destroyed on the glass. And after having watched last season play out, I'm concerned they're going to get destroyed on the glass this year. Now, look, last year was also a tough point of comparison because Joel Embiid was not on the court very often. And when he was on the court, he wasn't Joel Embiid.
Yep.
And if that's the case this year, then yeah, you're absolutely screwed. But, I think there's a reason it could be better than last year, but that mostly comes down to health, not necessarily because the roster's better. Because I agree, in terms of roster construction, they're going to get killed on the glass.
All right, and finally, before we say goodbye, get to the roll call. Summer League roster is out, and no Jarrett McCain.
Yep.
As we kind of expected, no Jarrett McCain. Here are the names, of course, that you know. Justin Edwards, Adembona, VJ Edgecombe.
Before you do this, consider throwing in like some random names and see if anyone from the audience can pick up the random names. Like a 2K player, create a player.
That's
just saying, it would be a fun game. It would be a fun game.
That, you know what? Well, you should have said that earlier when we were doing this. And
no, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Bree, I'll just send it to you if you want to throw it up on the screen. But here are some of the names that are out there, like Landers Nolly II. Is that a real name or is that a 2K player?
No, Landers that's actually
Nolly.
A real name.
That is actually a real name, and he's playing for your Summer Sixers. So get ready. We have
St. Thomas, not an island, a basketball player.
He is an actual basketball player. Keve Aluma is back. Good for him. He's wearing number 27 again. Good for him. Jalen Hood-Scafino is back on the team again. He won't be back on this team, but he'll be back on the team and maybe trying to lash on somewhere else. Justin Edwards, Adembona, VJ Edgecombe. The used minivan is back in the mix. Alex Reese is back. Janai Broom, Judah Mintz. Who else do we have in here? Jalen Slauson, Caleb Stone Carrawell, Mark Armstrong, Andrew Funk. Is that Andrew Funk from Penn State? Might be.
Can't imagine there's a second Andrew Funk playing basketball.
Yeah, might be. All right. He can shoot, though. Hunter Salas. I'm curious to see what he looks like with the team. And our buddy, Jack Clark, who was on our show pre-draft. Jack Clark, part of the Summer Sixers, local, again, Cheltenham native, played at VCU, LaSalle. VCU last, started off at LaSalle, went to Clemson, NC State as well. You need a power forward. Jack is 6'9", 6'10", and we'll get to see Jack in the Summer League as well. So those are your Summer Sixers. We'll talk a little bit more about that when Kyle and Derek are with us tomorrow for the full show and see some quotes maybe out there of what's going on. By the way, Janai Broom signed his deal, 4-year deal. You said 2 guaranteed?
Yeah, it's the second round exception that they have available to him. So 2 guaranteed, and then I think they're team options after that.
Okay. And Kyle also has up already at allphly.com. If you haven't signed up for the intro offer of $36, our Make Your Move intro offer. Kyle has his Sixers notebook up there at allphly.com where he dives into maybe summer VJ point guard duties, some responsibilities out there. We'll see about that, especially with no McCain. Focus in the pre-draft, some thoughts on the Summer League roster, and Janai Broom's contract, all at allphly.com. It's time to say the roll call. Say goodbyes. Did you write down any names?
Do it again. No.
See? Slacking. During the season, you're good with this. Like when it's just us two.
No, it's when it's a random show without Kyle that happens once every month. I always forget.
All right. Let's get to the roll call, folks.
Aaron.
What up, Aaron?
Bootzilla.
Boots.
Jay the Jungle. Money Mar.
What up, Jay?
Mellow 3-point.
Mellow, my man.
Riaz.
What up, Mar?
Eugene Ross. I said Boots. SB Cole. X-Man.
What up, X?
Vincent. Not our Vincent.
What up, Vinny?
The less annoying Vincent.
Vinny Chase.
Vincent Salamentino. Say what?
Say what?
Oh, there's Sean Ford. Too many repeats. I'm gonna Fred Carter. Phi Chi.
What up, Sean Ford?
I really screwed this up.
That's all right.
There's Jim G. There's just so many repeats. People argue constantly back and forth, which I appreciate. DC Marley.
What up, DC?
Habib 215. Hedva, of course, Hedva.
Absolutely.
Couldn't have
Winona
forgotten
saw
Hedva.
Nona in there. Super chats. We had Al, the 2-minute warning. We had Riaz and Holy Cannoli
Holy cannoli.
as well. And the super chat.
Did we see darkness? I don't think
I didn't
think we
see. I
saw
don't know if I saw
darkness.
darkness. We don't turn the lights down. Turn the lights down on the darkness. And Mom was in there. It's okay to laugh was also in the mix. And Mary Overfield saw it. Mary a little bit earlier as well. We thank everybody for hanging out with us. Make sure you go like and subscribe to the show. When you do, make sure you hit that bell icon. It'll sound like that to get those alerts that it is showtime, mostly at 3 p.m. here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. We also have those where you have the unexpected. It's emergency podcast time.
Oh, it's emergency podcast season. We will do 1 or 2 more of those.
And you want to make sure you're ready to go to get those alerts as well. So everybody say what is in the chat as well. Like seeing say what in the chat. Said Mom already. Everybody have a great rest of your Tuesday. Stay dry because the rain just keeps going on and off. So everybody stay dry, stay cool. We'll be back tomorrow at 3, all 3 of us, and including the super producer she is, president of basketball operations, Bree. Thank you, Bree, as always. We'll be back tomorrow at 3, all 4 of us together. 3 p.m. show on a Wednesday, still free agency frenzy. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3 right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast presented by Rothman Orthopedics. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.